Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome again to another Mindset Mastermind, where we get our daily dose of inspiration, motivation, information, so we can actually put in a full day of perspiration and kick tail on our businesses. Most of us in the room are real estate, just an absolute transparency. That being said, guys, if your mic is on, that means you're ready to talk about the content, and we are wrapping up principle 2. And really, the main part of today is going to be talking about branding and getting into that branding piece. So I wanted to start today, and yet I'm going to let somebody speak first so there's a break. And then I want to get on my soapbox a little bit about this content that we're going through. So I'm seeing Mike's hot. Doug, are you ready to go, my friend?
Yeah, in chapter 20 called Building Your Brand, um, there's four pillars. Pillar one is recognition, pillar two is reputation, pillar three is relevance, and pillar four is differentiation. Um, you know, uh, it is so easy to just be like every other realtor. It is, we're going to put up a sign in your yard. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's just the regular services. But when you're differentiating yourself, when you're building a brand, you have to show why you're different. And uh, uh, going through the learning process of building a brand is an exciting experience because you have to think about who you are and why you're here. You have to have a purpose for why you're here. You have to have a certain customer that you're looking for. And it's just this is an inspiring chapter to build your brand and to differentiate who you really are and really be able to speak your message to a market. This is a way of becoming who you really are in the marketplace. So this was good stuff.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk more on that, Doug, no doubt. And yet I want to jump to the beginning and get on my soapbox a little
Oh,
bit because
beginning. I
he
thought it was the
starts on
beginning.
chapter 20. The very first words are, "You are the brand, people buy you."
Yes.
We get so caught up in what brand we're on, what brokerage we're affiliated with real estate. I hear all the time, all these conversations that, well, my brand is recognized. I'm Sotheby's and we blah, 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 blah. NRA research, consumers care about the brand. Less than 2% of consumers care about the actual brokerage. They buy you. And so here's the key shift. If you are using your broker's signage, if you are using your broker's email, if you are using even a Gmail, which is even worse, but if you're doing those others, you are building that brand and putting your effort, time, and money into the corporate brand rather than the more important one, which is you. I had a great conversation with an agent yesterday, and he was well on his way there. He had a look and feel and logo like so many do. And yet he was still using all the corporate stuff behind the scenes. So it was disjointed. So two steps in this. One, as Doug put in here, you got to start thinking about your brand. And we're going to dive into that today. And then two, create that uniformity across everything. Josh, you're in here. Mike hot. You ready to speak, brother?
My mic is hot. Wow, that's weird. I'm changing clothes.
I don't want
I
to see
agree.
that.
No, my video's off. You're good. I agree 100%. You told me that before I ever started in this industry to create a brand and create an avatar, and we got away from the avatar for the first 8 9 months, and so now we're focusing back on that. A and B. It takes a while. It does. You've got to stick with it. It's just like anything else. Lead generation, you've got to stick through it and just mine it and be patient, but the brand does come around to where people recognize it, keep this logo, font, colors, I mean, center everything around it, and eventually you'll be rewarded.
And I want to dive in because you brought it in, Josh, the avatar. The avatar is your perfect consumer. Who do you really want to be in business with? Rather than attempting to be all things to all people, define what that perfect individual, and I might even allow you to have a couple or a family if that's your thing, and start going through everything about them, their demographics, their history. Just start being creative about exactly who they are. Give them names to where, you know what, when you think of Bob, bam, that's the person you're in business with. And here's why. All your communication, everything you do going forward is going to be in a tone speaking to that individual. Now, does it mean other people won't do business with you? No. Yet it will set you different in the space. And there's so many great examples of that. Celeste, I know you're working on this. What do you got?
So you know that I just went through the process with somebody that was one of Don Hobbs' second in command for marketing. And it was truly a challenge when I was sent a long questionnaire that I was to ask myself, who am I? And of course, as much as I think we each understand the person we are, the quality of who we are, someone else may not see it, or you're not expressing it so that they can see the quality of that person you want to be or want to portray. So I went to this guy. I actually paid quality money for him to take a look at who I was saying I was. And he came back with an entire marketing plan that I now feel it just establishes kind of a baseline that someone can look at and say, this person is an established business person. And what I would also add is I'm still the same person, but I now appear as if I'm established. And if I was to suggest to any of you, your marketing is more important than you know, because it's the first thing someone sees when you are putting out whatever you're putting out. And in my job, like my job is to help support my clients. They don't know how awesome I am until they're in my presence. But until then, you know, as you guys can see, anything I ever do with Zoom, this is what's going on behind me. And all it's doing is reminding them I'm an established business person. I didn't just come into this business last week. And as they get to know me, they know that my motives are all about them. But until then, this is what we're talking about. What is your brand? And if you're not good at it, get somebody who is and get them to do the nuance of who you are.
And the other piece of this I would really push, guys, is it's got to be something unique and different. So I'm going to give you two examples, one that's existed and one that I still am attempting to inspire to exist. A buddy of mine in Northern California, his brand was he gave to German Shepherd Rescue. He had a German Shepherd. Picture was him and his German Shepherd. Everybody knew him in town because they saw those photos of the two of them in everything. In fact, I'm going to give you three. Okay. So another great one, a buddy of mine. In fact, he's in the same brand now, Joe. How many of you have your photo on a card or on something else, your picture?
Mm-hmm.
He used the picture of him as a 2-year-old screaming toddler. So everybody knew that he was going to have a sense of humor and be light in that space, and he played in there. So the third one, guys, what I'm still pushing for, and yet she seems to be leaning the opposite direction. Celeste is the real estate godmother. Like the fairy godmother from Cinderella, she is the real estate godmother. And I would so love her leaning into that, because then people will see it, they will know it, and they will call her out in the grocery store. You start doing that. Joe got called out all the time from people that knew him laughing about his card and connecting those dots. It was a little harder for them because they didn't see him. Rory, who had the German Shepherd, all the time. By the way, that dog, last time I saw him, that dog had died 20 years ago. And it was still the photo. He had superimposed himself in a older version on that same photo, keeping that brand. Notice, by the way, fairy godmother, screaming toddler, German Shepherd, nothing to do with real estate, nothing to do with, oh, I am this level of producer. It's a brand that people will remember, and that's the key. Carrie, you're up.
Oh, shit. I wasn't ready.
That is a brand, by the way. You might want to run with it.
Yeah, she
Oh,
constantly
shit.
keeps her microphone on. Let's get that real estate agent. That would be awesome.
What do you got, my dear?
Oh,
You can mute.
the only,
That's
the
okay.
only,
I can
the
get
only
on
thing
it.
I would say, the only thing I really have to say about it, I guess, is because this is stuff um I had to teach my son because he at one point was in travel baseball, and they were just young and they were just like doing whatever they wanted, however they wanted, because they were just being teenage boys. But we had to teach them that it doesn't matter if you don't have your uniform on, this hotel still knows you're a baseball person. They will find out who you are and you will be associated with our team. And once you're associated with our team, if they decide not to have us back, that is because of you, because of the way you represented our brand. So I just learned through all that in life, it is so very important to be very particular about the way you present in front of everybody and anybody, because you will be judged. It doesn't matter if it's fair or not. The whole world judges you because they only know what you put out. And if you're putting that out and they don't like it, then you're out of luck, right? The brand,
And
whether
here's
it's
here's the fun part for me on this piece, though. That means that your brand has to tie in, as Doug said, to who you are.
right.
If you
Integrity.
put out a serious brand and you're like Joe Crispillo, who is now he, by the way, got Parkinson's. So he finally leaned into what he really likes doing, and he's doing stand-up at like 70 years of age. If you're putting out a serious brand, you're a comedian, that's going to be incongruent. It's not going to fly. So build your brand authentically, as Doug said, around who you are. What else are you guys pulling from the content? There's so many good nuggets in these last two chapters.
So if you had to say, good morning, everyone. So Russ, if you had to say someone needs to start as far as branding goes, what would be step one in your book?
Step one is defining your avatar, that perfect consumer, who you truly want to be in business. That is absolutely step one. Now let's talk about step 1.5. You're not married to them. You can always change. This is an evolving process, ever refining. So get started with something, have some target and some brand, and then keep refining. Celeste now is different than it was a year ago, is different than it was 2 years ago. Same with me. What I'm doing in this space is different than it was 4 years ago. So just keep refining. Take the step, get it out there, figure out who it is, and then just keep working on it better and better and better. All right.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking at Sarah. Thank you for speaking up, my dear. What do you got?
I have a couple of things. I have differentiate or die. And then, of course, I like the little quote on that page as well. The ninja strategy, pardon me. The ninja strategy is simply to be more relevant, more customer centric, and to give the customers what they want. And then the beginning of chapter 21, proactive, trusted advisor. I like the examples here in this chapter about the investors saying, "Hey, thank you. Why don't do this, even though the news is telling you to. Hey, you saved my whole entire business." The examples here are really good. We're not always chasing a check. You can't always be chasing a check. Those examples provide more checks in the future. And I think so many agents look at the here and now instead of what could happen a year from now, what could happen when the market changes, what could be. Okay, that's all I really have.
Well, let's dive into this though, Sarah.
All right then.
Because you're absolutely right. Proactive, trusted advisor. Okay? That is your role for life. Proactive. What does the author mean by proactive? It's
Just
not
get ahead of it.
reactive, where you're waiting for somebody to ask for help. It's proactive, where you're staying in the relationship.
You're anticipating their needs. That's what it's all about. You know what's going on. You're fully aware of the transaction and all the details, and you're anticipating what needs to be done. And again, yes, you don't want to be
I want to take you one
reactive.
step further, Sarah. The transaction's closed. They've
Okay.
moved in. Are you still being their proactive, trusted advisor, having a conversation with them minimum every quarter, checking in how they're doing with their property, and is there anything they need that you can help with? Well, I don't know. Well, gosh, how about home services, painting, plumbing, all that kind of fun stuff? You have anybody in that lane that
I
you
have
need?
we have the newsletter that goes out monthly. So I do have that. And then no, a follow-up program has, there's this definite work to be done, definite systems
So-
to be created.
So when we get into the next section, principle 3, we're going to be talking about some of those systems. And just like I added the things to the calendar next week to do a deep dive, I'm going to do a deep dive sharing with you the database systems to get what I lovingly call being in a dance with your database. It's not making phone calls. It's falling in love with your people and taking them on an incredible dance. Caesar, brother, it's great to see you. What do you got?
Thanks, Coach. I wanted to add a little bit of the differentiate yourself or die. I was recently listening to, I forget, some trainer, and it was they asked the room, what makes you so valuable or what makes you different? And then people are like, I'm a hard worker. Everyone says that, like all these very typical answers. And the one lady that's like, well, I forget, she said something specific of why they were different. It was something very simple too. Like, well, if you don't like our contract, you can rip it up and throw it away. And she was the only one that actually gave a different response for everyone else. And the common denominator with that is that they also had a high volume of transactions every year. So that I wanted to bring that into the room. And also the brand thing, we've talked about this before. Nike brands to a certain population of people, but it does not mean that older folks don't buy Nikes or that younger folks don't buy Nikes, but they also have a brand of that demographic of like 35 to whatever age, whatever their age. Secondly, I have a loan officer before he does all like VA loans. He's like all he does is VA. He's like term VA, but he obviously does other types of loans, but he just grabs that niche because he was a veteran before or something like that. And so he's like, that's his niche, but does not mean he gets all across the board, all types of other business. So I just wanted to bring that into the room. Just because you have a niche doesn't mean you don't get other types of business. It's just that you're just focusing on that. So just want to bring that to the room.
Awesome, Caesar. And one of my favorite stories on this has just happened in the last couple of years. There is this whole area of insulated cups that one brand dominated out of Austin forever, right? And who is it? Who's the brand?
Yeti.
Yeah, right. Yeti. We all know it. Yeti. And then some random hardware company decides to go with a different avatar, women specifically, and starts offering crazy color cut. The only thing they did to their line Their unique value proposition is we got this in powder blue, we got this in pink. And who freaking sold more in the last 18 months than any other brand?
Stanley.
Right?
Stanley.
Yeah, Stanley went
daughter
through the
loves him.
roof.
Yes.
Just changing the
Ju-
coloring.
Just by deciding on an avatar. And by the way, it was mostly young, athletic, influencer yoga women. I can't tell you how many of these damn things my daughter has. And they sold a bajillion of them.
Well, Russ, could I don't know if this has anything to tied in with that Stanley. Remember when there was like a car that went up in flames and there was like a Stanley Cup in there that was still like intact. And I don't know if that had any like correlation to like the sales going up or not, or maybe there was that their own marketing ploy. That would be a genius way to put it up because it was all over the news and things like that. So I just remember that.
Yep, they did
It goes
absolutely
back to
share that
Perception
story.
is reality.
Yep, they did share that story, and yet the reason they sold so much is because of that niche and that branding. Don Hobbs, brother, I've been waiting for you.
Sorry about that. I was in other things and trying to get here. I'm here.
All
I'm
right,
excited.
man. Well, we have been talking a lot of stuff around the edges. What do you wish to bring into the space, my friend? Because this is you.
Well, there's lots to say about marketing, but I think, I heard what Cesar said, which was, a lot of times we think that it's about what we do for our clients, and it is. I mean, we have to acknowledge marketing has nothing to do with what you deliver, except it has everything to do with what you deliver. So we don't find out if you're good or not good until after we've chosen you. How we choose you is a marketing issue. How we choose you is this brand, this sense of you, this feeling about you. I get all that stuff. Know you, like you, trust you. And if I remember you, I get to call you. So all of that happens first. That's all happening out here in the world. Now, in today's world of marketing, we're adding that next piece, which is when we start to help people experience us and have a great experience, then that is what the public begins to talk about. And it goes beyond what we are saying about ourselves and becomes the community of people talking about us. And that's when it explodes, right? That's really when Larry Kendall and I did our session earlier in October. That's one of the things I was really trying to get across was today we're building community. We're building this fan base. We're building this this ambassador group. We're building people, but it all starts with a brand that's recognizable, and that's all based in a unique niche. And we have an avatar, and we talk to them, and we write to them, and we market to them, and whoever else gets it, great. But I want you to really think about something, and for those that dropped into Chris Stegg's event yesterday, the one thing I reiterated there that I've said it 10,000 times is you have to recognize that the first step is deciding on the market you're going to appeal to. And what that means is when I've decided I'm going to be a neurosurgeon, it means I'm not delivering babies. It means I'm not doing foot surgeries. It means I'm not, working on stomachs. I'm not doing plastic surgery. I've decided, and Russ, you can talk about what decide means. I've decided that I'm going to work with people who need help on their brains. And by the way, for that, I'm sought after because I'm such a unique person, and everybody gets to know that I'm the answer to their challenges if they have that problem. So what it appears is that, well, you're going to limit yourself. No, you're going to expand your value in a narrower focused niche where they want you to be their, in our case, agent of choice, right? You're the one that serves their needs because you've spoken to my mentality. So anyway, that was a lot of words to get around. But then on top of that, then you build this, how do I get other people to talk about that? And in the real estate space, we have a wider appeal than a neurosurgeon who's got a very specific thing. But I want you to really think about how do I build a focus so that they will brag about me to the world so that it reaches many more people than I can possibly reach. It's not my marketing dollars, it's the mouthpieces that I bought through my brand loyalty.
And
So I'll stop
share
there.
with you, Guy, one other fun piece that might give you a little comfort, because I know people pucker on picking this lane. Let's take neurosurgeon Don or oncologist Paul that I knew as a killer, amazing doc in Huntsville, Alabama. Don remembers there was a particular day that I needed a hematologist at the end of it. Who did I ask for the best hematologist? Paul.
Right.
So although you are the real estate agent for condos and you're the condo Contessa, as somebody might be in our world, everybody knows you in that lane. They need a single family ranch with acreage. Odds are they're still going to call you and ask, hey, who do you know that plays at the same level that you do? And then what are you going to get off that? What's called a referral fee. All right. It's still revenue from lots of sources when you pick your lane and master your lane. Tom, I know you've been waiting, and then I got a Camacho on deck.
Ooh,
I know your
I just
mic's
went
been
out and
hot.
came back in. I
Well,
just wanted to
welcome back.
introduce Coach Robert Camacho.
So, Cesar, I really like the idea that you were bringing in the whole Nike thing. And I love the story because Don, this hits on going mass, just shrinking your life, going really small to get big. The founder of Nike is speaking to a group of thousands of people, and he's on stage and they're interviewing him. And he says, "Who is your target audience?" So he says, anybody who's ever worked out in their life, please stand up. So of course the whole room stands up. And I mean, thousands of people. He says, if you are consistent in your workout and you work out, 1 or 2 times a week, remain standing, everybody else sit down. Well, he kept going through this. And he finally he says, now, and the group gets smaller and smaller every time. He says, how many of you work out 3 times a week, 4 times a week? And he says, how many of you work out and run in the rain or snow, no matter what? And by this time, there's just a sprinkling of people in the audience, in an audience of thousands. He says, we, as a company, we are under the lights in the early morning. We're out there standing in the rain on the sidewalk, cheering you on. You are the people we do our business for. And of course, that is a really, really small market. And yet I would venture to say everybody on this call, everybody that we know has bought a pair of Nike shoes. And I love that story about going small.
So here's the wild thing about that. Everyone got up though. With that first question, everyone got up. So
Well, and
even though
here's why, client, if you're in a room of home sellers, how many people want to sell their house? Everybody's going to stand up. I don't want you, just like he didn't want that to be for everybody. He wanted to be for that small group.